If you're just looking at Kyler Murray's record and thinking 13-17 over the last 3 years, that's average at best. You're missing the most important part out of the story, because this isn't about what Murray was. It's about what he's never had and why that might finally change with the Minnesota Vikings. Let's start with the stat that changes everything. Over the past 3 seasons, Murray ranks right in the middle of the league in EPA per start, 17th out of 29 qualified quarterbacks. That puts him in the same tier as Sam Darnold, Dan. Now, normally, that wouldn't be headline worthy. But here's where it gets shocking. Darnold's record in that span, 28-7. Murray's record, 13-17. Same level of quarterback efficiency. Completely different results. So what's the difference? It's not talent, it's not system, it's not even consistency, it's support. Darnold played with teams that gave him a massive advantage. Elite defense and special teams combining for a league-best plus 7.5 EPA. Murray, he had the worst support in the entire sample. Negative EPA. Bottom-tier defense, minimal help in critical moments. And that's not just a small gap. That's the difference between playing uphill and playing with momentum. Because football, especially at the quarterback position, is never played in isolation. You can make the right read, you can deliver the perfect throw, you can lead scoring drives, and still lose if your defense gives it right back. That's been the story of Murray's career with the Arizona Cardinals. Now zoom out. Over the last 3 seasons, Arizona's defense ranked near the bottom of the league in points allowed per drive, 31st, 21st, and 29th. That's not just inconsistent, that's structurally broken, and it explains something that's followed Murray his entire career. Why his production flashes, but his results don't stick. Because every game turns into a shootout. Every mistake gets magnified. Every possession feels like it has to be perfect. That's not a sustainable way to win in the NFL. Now compare that to what he's walking into. Under Brian Flores, the Vikings defense has quietly become one of the most reliable units in the league. Top 5 in points allowed per drive in back-to-back seasons. Aggressive, disciplined, adaptable, and most importantly, they close games. That's something Murray has almost never experienced. Think about that for a second. This will potentially be the first time in his entire NFL career that Kyler Murray plays with a legitimate top-tier defense. Not average, not improving, actually elite. That's not a small upgrade. That's a completely different reality, because when a quarterback has that kind of support, everything changes. You don't have to force throws. You don't have to chase points every drive. You don't have to play hero ball just to stay in the game. You can manage situations. You can pick your moments. You can trust the game flow. And for a player like Murray, who already has elite playmaking ability, that's where things get dangerous. Now layer in the offensive environment. Head coach Kevin O'Connell has built a system designed to maximize quarterbacks, spacing, timing routes, play action. It's structured but flexible enough to allow creativity. That matters for Murray because one of the biggest criticisms of his game has always been inconsistency within structure. Too much freelancing, too much reliance on improvisation. But what if you put him in a system where structure actually helps him, where he doesn't need to create everything on his own? That's the experiment Minnesota is running. And then there's the comparison everyone's making. Darnold, same efficiency tier, massively better record. But here's the part people aren't saying out loud. Murray has a higher ceiling, more arm talent, more mobility, more explosive playmaking. So if Darnold could produce elite results in this environment, what happens if Murray hits? That's where this starts to feel less like a hopeful projection and more like a legitimate breakout scenario. Because for the first time, all the variables are aligning. Competent defense, quarterback-friendly system, motivation from a fresh start, and maybe most importantly, something to prove. But let's keep this grounded. There are still risks. Murray has to stay healthy. He has to operate within structure. He has to cut down on the inconsistency that's followed him. And the Vikings defense, while strong, has to maintain its level. If that unit regresses, the entire equation changes because as we've seen, Murray without support turns into chaos. But if everything holds, then yes, the ceiling is real. This isn't just about making the playoffs. This is about redefining how Murray is viewed across the league, because right now he's seen as talented but flawed, exciting but inconsistent, capable, but not proven. A strong 2026 season in Minnesota changes all of that. And here's the most important takeaway. This isn't about turning Murray into something new. It's about finally putting him in a situation where what he already is actually translates to winning. So when you look at that stat again, the EPA, the record gap, the defensive support, don't see it as a random number. See it as context. Because if Kyler Murray gets even average support, history says his record improves. If he gets elite support with the Minnesota Vikings, then 2026 might not just be a good season. It might be the first time we see what he was always supposed to be. For years, the story around him was simple. Electric talent, disappointing results. But what if Kyler Murray was never the problem? Because one stat just flipped everything, and it might change how Minnesota Vikings fans see 2026. Over the last 3 seasons, Murray ranks right in the middle of the league in EPA per start. Not elite, not bad, solid. Right next to Sam Darnold. But here's where it breaks. Darnold's record in that span, 28-7. Murray's, 13-17. Same level of quarterback play. Completely different results. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because of everything around the quarterback. And that's the tension that's been hiding in plain sight. While Murray was battling in Arizona, the Arizona Cardinals were dragging him down. Defense, special teams, field position, game flow, all of it working against him. In fact, when you stack the numbers, it gets worse. Darnold's teams gave him the best defensive and special team support in the league over that stretch. Murray, dead last. Let that sink in. Worse support, same efficiency, losing record. That's not inconsistency. That's context. And now, for the first time in his career, Murray is stepping into something completely different. Structure. Because in Minnesota, the defense isn't just good. It's been elite under Brian Flores, top tier in limiting scoring drives. Aggressive, disciplined, reliable. The exact opposite of what Murray had in Arizona. That's the turning point. Because if you take a quarterback who's already producing at a mid-tier level and you give him top-tier support, you don't just get improvement. You get a jump, a real one, the kind that changes seasons. And suddenly that comparison to Darnold doesn't feel like a ceiling anymore. It feels like a baseline because Murray brings something Darnold never did: dynamic playmaking, off-script ability, explosive upside. If the defense holds, and there's no reason to think it won't, Murray won't have to carry games. He'll just have to finish them. That's a completely different job. And that's why this matters. For the Vikings, this isn't just a quarterback upgrade. It's a system finally aligning with a skill set that's been undercut for years. For Murray, it's uncharted territory. A real defense, real support, real expectations, no excuses. And if this works, if the numbers translate the way they suggest, then 2026 won't be about whether Kyler Murray can win. It'll be about how far he can take them once he finally has the help to do it.